So I had a viewer email me and ask if it was possible to make a repertoire for black that you could learn in 10 minutes. And they also had the stipulation that they didn't want it to be a Scandinavian or a Slav, because I've done videos on that and I do play that myself. So my thought is I'd be happy to take a stab at it. I don't think you could do an entire repertoire. At least I couldn't against everything in 10 minutes, but I thought I could do a repertoire against D4 in 10 minutes, a repertoire against E4 in 10 minutes, and then a repertoire against everything else in 10 minutes. So it'd be like a half hour total of video time. But I think it would cover you for the majority of the things you would see. And the idea would be to not get overwhelmed in variations, just kind of learn these real basics, and then play it. And when you get done, look up a game in the line that you played. And if they played something you weren't prepared for, look in the database on how other strong players handled that position. So I thought what I would do is I'll start the clock shortly here and cover what I would probably play against D4 if I only had 10 minutes to learn an opening before I started playing it. So let me get the clock rolling here. All right, and we got the clock started. What I would play against D4 is I would, if they played the Queen's Gambit right off the shoot with C4, I would play E6 going into a Queen's Gambit declined-like structure. And the idea is if they go down the main kind of line here, is I would play C5 and go into the Tarrasch. But we're not going to play it like traditionally like the Tarrasch is played. We are going to play this move, and generally black in this position takes on this isolated queen's pawn. We're going to avoid that for the most part. And what we are going to do, we develop our knights in alphabetical order. If they go into the Queen's Gambit right off the bat, that's one trick of the Tarrasch. And once they get to the point like this, where it's a strong, players are going to play this kingside fianchetto, attack our D pawn because they think it's going to become isolated after, this pawn is gone. And so what we do is we hit them with a little surprise and we play C4. We play this Swedish variation. And so we're not going to oblige by what they think that we're going to do. And the idea is we just play to indirectly support this D5 pawn. And if they end up hitting at that pawn in the center, we just take it. And interestingly, in this position right here, white's best move, according to the engine, is queen to E2. But I don't think we probably have to worry about humans playing that much. I think it'd be more likely they would play something like A3. And we're sitting really good here, actually. So that would be what I would play against the Queen's Gambit when they do the D4, C4 move order. Now, if instead of playing C4, if they play knight to F3, instead of playing E3 right away, I would suggest playing knight to F6. And what this does is it leaves our bishop, our light squared bishop, open to develop in case they play some of the D-pawn specials like the Colle or the London and stuff like that. So the idea is if they play C4, we play E6, and then we go back in to this similar kind of structure, which is very similar to the Tarrasch, except that we have the addition of these two knight moves. And our idea is if they take our C-pawn, we can recapture with the knight at this point, and we have a semi-Tarrasch position now. So this is just like a good level position, pretty easy for black. It's going to work out all right. If after C5 they play bishop to G5, our theme is going to be, for the most part, if they don't initiate exchanges for us, we're going to initiate exchanges towards the center by playing C takes D4. and we'll get something like this. Now, if after we play c5 in this position where we got the knight moves inserted, if they play e3, we just follow our rule. When in doubt, we capture towards the center. And we got, you know, kind of a position that it's hard to say that white has much of an advantage at all here. So that is the most common things that happen. Now let's look if instead of playing knight to c3, after we play e6 out of the c4 move order, if they play knight to f3, we still hit them with c5. And if we get this kind of thing, we've transposed back into our Tarrasch-like position, and you know, we're fine here. If after c5, if they play knight to c3, we can actually follow a rule where we just start capturing towards the center whenever white allows us to do it. And then we, you know, we're putting pressure on the center. And look at this. They probably didn't want to get in a position where we had the isolated pawn and get in an attacking position. But this is looking pretty good to me. So that's probably not the kind of position that they're going to want to play. Now, if instead of knight to c3, if they play e3, once again, our solution, we just capture towards the center. And so now, you know, when we take there, white has spent a tempo and moved their bishop twice. So the idea is that we play c5. If they give us, if they capture on d5 and they think they're going to go this isolated pawn, we try to play for c4 and play the Swedish variation. If not, we get in positions where we capture c takes d4 ourselves. So we got 4 minutes left. Let's try to cover the d-pawn specials really quick. And these would be like the Londons, the colle, the, you know, Tarrasch, stuff like that. So my idea for that would be if they play knight to f3 instead of c4 out of the opening, we play knight to f6 like we talked about before. And if they play bishop to f4 like they're going into a London, then what we do is we hit with c5, kind of like when we're playing the Tarrasch. And the idea is we're going to destabilize that center. Now, if whenever we do this, because we'll do the same thing if they play like e3 there and they play a colle, we're going to hit with c5. And if they take it, that's fine. We just play e6. And if they try to hang on to it, we just remember that we undermine b4 with a5. And the theme is eventually we play b6. And we get our initiative for them trying to hang on to that pawn. And these positions are actually good for us. Like right here, we have more than, well, we got our pawn back actually, but we have really good position. So the same kind of thing would happen if after c5, well, let's just cover quick if they play e3 here. Then my idea is we do like we did before. If they don't capture us, we capture towards the center. And we will get a position kind of like this potentially we could get, but what's more likely to happen, and in which case we could just move our queen over and protect the b2 square, we're probably going to get something like this, and then we will play a minority attack in this Carlsbad structure where we try to create a backward pawn on c3. We try to attack that with our minority. And so let's just look at one more thing real quick. If they played the colle, let's see, I got a little, almost 2 minutes. I think I'll get through it. We play c5 again. If they take, same idea, e6. If they try to hang on to it, we undermine that pawn and hit them with b6, just like we did before. And we're going to end up getting a good position here. the idea is eventually we will take on b4. So if they play the like a kind of like a pseudo Trompowsky type thing, then we can just insert knight to e4. When they move their bishop away, hit them again with c5. The idea is we'll just do like we did before, where we will get the minority attack theme going. So it's kind of like, easy way to remember it is we take on d4 with the c5 pawn, basically whenever they let us. And if not, if they capture first, then we usually play e6 and we regain that pawn under favorable circumstances. So I think that covers most of what we would face. Now, if they played bishop to f4 on move 2, that move order of the London system, nothing surprising here. We hit them with c5, and we just go into this Carlsbad structure again. So we're going to get, just like we had before, where we aim for this minority attack. So let's see. I think I just barely made it. 6 seconds. So we had 5 seconds to spare, basically. And I think if you memorize these lines. Oh, wow. That is quite the alarm that goes off. If we memorize these lines and then just these kind of ideas, the key being is we're going to play the Tarrasch. You know, if they exchange, if we get into, let me back up. In these types of structures, we just know that they're trying to give us the isolated queen pawn. So at some point, they're going to try to wait till we move our dark squared bishop to take on c5, so they make us move our dark squared bishop twice. But we're going to use that against them, and we're going to, at some point, we're going to play c4, and then we're not going to take on the isolated pawn. And then, basically, if they don't take, then eventually we're more than happy to initiate exchanges on d4 with c takes d4, and then it's hard for them to argue that they've gotten anything in these kind of like semi-Tarrasch like positions. Same thing against the d pawn specials is we hit them with an early c5, and we're willing to exchange c takes d and give them Carlsbad structure. So yeah, I mean, I would play this. I wouldn't be afraid to play this. And I think the person that contacted me is an adult that has very limited time for studying, and so I think it would make sense to adopt something like this where they can play for the most part on general principles. They know a few ideas, and then the idea is if people play stuff that's not covered here, look it up afterwards in the database. Try to find a game where like a stronger player beat a weaker player in that position, and then just flip through it, and over time you'll understand all the themes and how you play these positions. So I'll do another video on responding to e4 in 10 minutes, and then I'll do one against like all the other stuff. So, and what I'll do is I'll put a link to a Lichess study where I just have these lines and some short notes with some ideas in there, and you can download those as PGNs and feel free to use them. You could even load them in the Chessimple and study it that way or something if you just wanted like a real easy way to start. So anyway, I hope you know who you are. I hope you found that helpful, and I will be back at some point here soon and do one against e4. All right, take care.